Welcome. Good morning. Celeste Souter here. How is everyone? Today is January 24th, 2025. My name is Celeste Souter, and this is Rise and Shine with Celeste. How is everyone? Good morning. First week back. Didn't think I was coming back ever. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that. But here we are, and it's been amazing. It's been a week of lots of good stuff. I hope it has been for y'all too. So, as you're popping on, please say hello so I know the comments are working. I'm going to go pull it up over here and we're going to get started. I will say I was all over the place today, so you never know. But I was kind of like that yesterday too, so you never know. Good morning, Melissa. Good morning. I'm a few minutes late. I wasn't even like worried when I pressed live or anything like that. I was just studying. And then I looked up and I was like, oh, it's time to go live. Um, so, anyways, how is everyone? Have you had a good week? That is the question. Um, it was, oh my gosh, yesterday. Wow, there was some, like it's still been a week, but good things are happening and life is still going, and that's the thing about life is it still goes, and it's still a little hard, right? Like, but it's been a decent week. Lots of breakthrough, and I'm pray that y'all have had that too, that you know 2025 is good. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning. All right. I don't know why I adjust this every day. Like, I haven't touched it. You know what I do need to do though? And I noticed this. I need to clean it. But you don't think about it until you turn okay. I touched it and I shouldn't have. Hi. um oh well, it's fine. I've also noticed these are just things I noticed. So welcome to my world. The platform I'm using for this instead of what I was using last year, the it's not a bad picture, but like my lighting now is super concentrated, and it's been a week of soul searching. Yes. It wasn't on the other platform. Is that weird? I don't know. So, anyways, well, there's like a light mode. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll mess with some stuff later, and or probably not, Honestly, I'll probably forget about it as soon as I start praying, honestly. Cuz it's really not that big of a deal. It's really not. Um so, anyways, all right, let's get into it and see what God has for us this morning. I did take my pill this morning, so by the time I got done getting dressed and stuff, I was already kind of like I was already talking to him anyways as I was getting dressed. I've already oh gosh, what is it? Posted. I've already posted a reel, and it was my get ready with me this morning. A lot of good things are happening over here, and hard too. It's in that learning to push through the hard. So let's get into it. All right, Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for these women and listeners, these men, they come on. I thank you for the breakthroughs that have happened and the breakthroughs to come. And I thank you for the strength to keep going, because, woof, if it was up to me, Lord, I would still be sleeping. And you know that. So, God, I invite your searching gaze into my heart, and I encourage others to start praying these words in Psalm 139. In verses 23 and 24, this is what it says. God, I invite your searching gaze into my heart. Examine me through and through. Find out everything that may be hidden within me and put me to the test. Sift through all my anxious cares. See if there's any path I'm walking on, and lead me back to your glorious everlasting ways. Um, I offer myself as a living sacrifice, and I encourage those who are watching to do the same. Your will, not mine, be done. Your will, not theirs or ours, be done. Your will, not mine, be done. Let me be like putty in your hands, where obedience, surrender, and submission are acts of worship done out of love, not out of religious obligation. In Jesus' name, amen. Good morning, Heather. Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone? I can't even get it out. It amazes me how much joy I get out of getting up at 4:30 in the morning. But I guarantee you, when I get up at 4:30, or I don't know if I have ever gotten up at 4:30 in the morning if I didn't have these lives. Um, but the joy that I have by getting up at 4:30 in the morning is like no other. And I'm not sure. I'm so sure. Okay, fine. It's in the sacrifice. It's in that sacrifice. It's in the sacrifice of getting up, in the preparation, and the momentum. It's in the sacrifice of sitting here and listening and discerning and um, utilizing the tools and the research methods that I find him. It's in the sacrifice of that. It's in the sacrifice of pressing live. And and the thing is, last year I really struggled with, like, I'm still feeling the fear. I'm still feeling the fear. And I still feel fear when I hit live. I don't. And it's not me. I recognized right before I stopped going live, I recognized that I had been using that as a crutch to make sure that you understood that I'm still human and this is a sacrifice, and if God's calling you to it, he'll see you through. And there's fruit in that too. There's fruit in that, but and it took almost 9 months of me just pressing live, saying that almost every day, for me to come out of this agreement with, oh, wait, he's calling me to this. I'm not supposed to have that spirit of fear. Like, there was no condemnation in the revelation of this. Okay, so I want y'all to hear that. And I had another revelation yesterday brought to me from a friend, like somebody I hold in high regard. And anyways, going back to last year, the revelation came after 9 months of pressing live, saying, oh, I'm still feeling fear. And I was. But wow, on the other side of that, yes, I quit going live for a little while, but here I am on the other side of that. We're going to call this season 2. And the fear's not there to press live. I don't have to work myself up. I don't have to swallow it. I don't even have those heart palpitations anymore. But it's not me necessarily. I'm not relying on myself to be fearless. I gave that to him. That's what we've been talking about all week. It's what we've been talking about all week. And it's a message he started in me quite a while ago about our sacrifices. Yeah, I walking this stuff out. I think some of my I pray that walking some of this stuff out, stepping into obedience, continuing to step into obedience. When I hear a word from him, I take it and I know it's him, and sometimes it takes a little while to sink in. And that's what he was showing me today, was discernment. Discerning the voice of God. See, that was the first book that I read after I had a real encounter with a real Jesus in a real way in 2018. And he showed himself to me in the way that he showed himself to me, that he was in a situation that I felt was absolutely, I was just so mad. I was just really, really mad. I was mad at the situation. I was mad at him. I was still in that God, do I hear you? And then I was leaning on others, and not just that, like, I was relying on my own perception and all those things. And I was just so mad. And then I was also in the camp of, Well, if, you know, he could if he would, or he would if he could, or whatever. Like he would if he wanted to. Talking about God. And so, I wasn't taking into consideration that people make decisions. We all have willpower. Are y'all hearing me this morning? Am I just, do y'all hear me? Is this landing true for someone? In 2018, my oldest daughter, was, I'm not going to call it kidnapping, but she was taken over state lines by her biological father in a way that was fear driven. And she was returned 2 days, 3 days later, but it was the next 2 weeks that Jesus like actually became real to me. And so my husband and I had already, and I've told this story before, but I just feel that it's time to tell it again. And if you've heard it before, great, stay. If you haven't, great, stay. Because there's something in it for you. It's just like if when you get into the word, if you allow the word to change you, there are verses that will stick out in one season and they will mean something completely different in the next. So if you've heard my story once, listen to it again because there might be something new. Okay? There might be something new in it for me. Okay? It's the way God works. 2018, we have this really scary weekend before this, and we're talking about discerning the voice of God, okay? So before this happened, Eric and I, well, and the girls had started attending a church. We had been kind of steeped in religion. Eric, especially, he had, grown up in it. And good morning. Good, Heather. Okay, so he'd grown up in it and we had kind of left the church. We didn't know what we believed in. We dabbled in a lot of things. Oh my goodness, Gil. We had dabbled in a lot of things and we just didn't know exactly what we believed in, but we had this moment even, 6 months before all of this happened, 6, 8 months before all of this happened, and where I asked for a divorce and I was completely and utterly just drunk. I was drunk. Eric was heartbroken. We didn't understand what was going on. I was heartbroken. Like there was just a lot of things. And in that moment, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And the Holy Spirit spoke through me. Don't tell me he can't speak through drunkards because he did it through me. And Eric asked, what will keep you here? Like, what will make you stay? Like, how can we do this? And I said, we got to get back in church. I have no recollection of this. And from that day forward, we went to church. We just went to church and we quit trying to fix each other and we started focusing on God. And by January, I was starting to hear Holy Spirit, but I wasn't quite there yet. Okay. So I was still kind of looking at like this ethereal, I appreciate y'all. I was looking at this ethereal kind of like, I didn't feel the love of God yet. And it hadn't soaken in, like it hadn't like taken root yet. Okay. And so in March, in January, I started feeling this poke and hearing it, and I went with it. I was obedient in it, and it said, start praying for Grace's biological father. So at that point, I didn't know, right? I didn't know like what that even looked like. I didn't know what prayer looked like. I didn't know, but it was in that childlike faith. It was in that obedience to a God that I wasn't sure I even believed in. I believed in God. I believed in the higher power, but I didn't know if I believed in all the other things. And I'd been church all my life. I had professed faith at 12, yet there were things that I couldn't get in order. So therefore, I didn't think I was worthy and he wasn't moving. Just a lot of stuff. It's just the human condition. In January, we start praying. And it was like this really like, I lift this guy up to you and his wife. I lift him up. I lift him up, and I would do that at supper every day in front of my daughter. And it was just following what I felt in my spirit at the time. And I didn't know that's what I was feeling. I was discerning the voice of God. I think we constantly question, am I hearing the voice of God? I still do it. I did it this week. And he was reminding me that I had put out a call for help, I guess, to him, that if this happened, then I was hearing him. So that's called the fleece. I put this fleece out. If this happens, I'm hearing from him. And it happened, and I still question, am I hearing from you, God? And then he reminded me as I was in the shower this morning, I don't know, that's where I do my thinking. It happened. You heard me. It's discerning the voice of God. And it's like we constantly don't trust it, but we don't trust ourselves either. Well, in that moment, I didn't know not to trust it. And so I started lifting him up. I started lifting these people up. I was praying for my enemies. And by March, my kid had this really hard weekend. We had this really hard weekend. And see, when I started praying, I had this idea of an outcome, an expectation on an outcome. I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this, God, so you can do this. And I was standing on complete restoration. And let me tell you, that has actually come to pass. But 5-6 years later, okay, that happened. But see, I was standing on complete restoration. I was waiting for the miracle. I wasn't waiting on the miracle. I was expecting the miracle right then and there. And what was a miracle looked like devastation to me. So she was taken. She spent a couple of days, 3 days. We spent a couple of days, 3 days in complete fear, right, of what's going to happen next. In this fear-driven weekend, things like that. She was returned. My husband absolutely surrendered and became this new creature the night that she was returned. It was actually, anyways, it was the night right before she was returned, actually. But he surrendered, and I was living with this weird guy that had this peace and this joy and this these things exuding from him, and I was so angry. I was angry. See, my expectation wasn't met, so therefore, how can I trust him? And I was leaning on my own understanding. But I didn't understand all of that at that time. See, I'm not sitting up here shaming that woman for doing that. I'm not shaming her. I'm not coming into agreement with anything like that, but I'm saying that I was discerning the voice of God, but yet I put my own earthly or perception or expectations, and they were not met, so therefore my trust was broken and I was angry. And what I didn't recognize was so much, there was so much more. And these are things that will, these movements that were happening in the spirit are things that will affect the legacy that I'm leaving. But I didn't see it at the time. I was wanting the miracle right then and there. Anybody else had these moments? You're like, I trusted you. I did what you said, yet here we are. And God's like, wait, just wait, be still. We talked about that yesterday. Be still and know. And I'm telling you, discerning the voice of God. I heard the voice of God, yet then I questioned his intentions towards me because of my own perception. Okay? Discerning the voice of God. Yeah. Prayers, we stopped praying, he still hears. And that's true. So I'm living with this weird guy, and this weird guy is all of a sudden just absolutely ravenous to learn more about God. Okay. So he grew up in the Catholic religion. He did the things, he tried to earn all the things. And this is one point that I want to make today. And we're sitting over here at 42, both of us, 42 years old. We've been married for 20 years. We've been together almost half our lives. And see, Eric worked at finding worthiness in his human condition with what would be called purity. And I ran completely in the opposite direction because I didn't understand that I was worth the purity. I don't know how to explain that. We're going to talk about that. And and all of this does tie hand in hand with what like I'm talking about with this. So just stick with me. I discerned the voice of God. Eric heard the voice of God. I got angry. Eric fell down on his knees. He was ravenous for to learning more about this God that had been so hard to find in his life. And I had always heard in the spirit, yet he was working for his, and I gave up on trying to work for mine. But then, anyways, I tried to find the worthiness before I stepped into. It was a really weird conundrum. He starts watching YouTube and he's like, you have to see this. And so we started, I started watching with him, and it was reluctantly. I was a little, well, I was just mad. I was just mad at the world. I was mad at all of this stuff. I was dissociated. I don't even know if dissociated is the right word, but I was absolutely just out of control is what it was. I didn't have control, and I didn't know what the outcome was, and I couldn't even put my expectations on the outcome. Okay. And so I felt out of control. I was angry. Here we are, we're sitting and watching these things, and we're watching about the Old Testament, and we're in all these things, these architects and these people and these really like in-depth documentaries about God and the Bible and being how it's being, proven. And see, this has come in, and it's penetrating this mind and this heart that was told that the Bible was antiquated, and that believe in a higher power, but the Bible is antiquated, it's man-made, and it's just a rule book. And I was confused and I was angry, but I was sat there. And for 2 weeks I sat there watching these films with Eric, and it started renewing my mind. It started breaking past that barrier of my mind. And I wasn't just, seeking Holy Spirit and spiritual things. I was seeking God and his story for us as humans, and his story for me. And all of a sudden I wake up one morning, I sit straight up in bed, and I had just had a vision dream. I don't know how else to describe it, but I had been sitting on Grace's grave, and it had been 2 weeks since she passed away. And it was so real. And in that moment, I knew he saved her from a very scary situation, or what could have been. I see it bigger now, but at that time, it was like saved her from her biological father, but that wasn't it. That wasn't it at all. It was the enemy, right? And I woke up from that. I'd been watching YouTube, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, I believe this now, and I believe that, and there's things that were like lining up with this like Bible and the history and the science and the things that I didn't even think that I liked, like science. He was pursuing me with. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, if that happened, this happened, I believe that. And I'm starting to believe like the Bible, like the actual Bible has, like, it's real and it's true. And I'm seeing between the lines, and things are making sense, and I'm hearing in the spirit, but it's also being grounded in science and the word. And it was a really cool experience. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, if that, and then that, I'm like, well, then Jesus. Well, if this happened and I believe in that, and this happened and I believe in that, and I'm starting to put two and two together, I'm like, oh, then Jesus was real. Like, he's not this fictitious character, that he's actually real. He really lived. Because I hadn't done the studying. I hadn't done the studying. I was just relying on spiritual things because that's what I was seeking my entire life, was the spiritual matters, because I seek in sensory. And sensory to me is in my mind. And that's the way he made me. And so we were talking about these things that were lining up, right? There were these crutches that I've held on to in my life. And it's like discerning the voice of God. I've been holding on to these crutches to explain my humanness and why I do what I do, but yet why do I do what I do? I do it because he's made me that way. I do it because I was created to be that way. And in the pursuit of doing what I was created to do, then I get to learn who I am, who I was made to be. I get to learn who he is and find myself in him in me. And see, it's a very personal pursuit. It's a very personal pursuit, but not in the way that I am trying to find self. I am trying to reconcile who I am in my mind, my heart, my being, to who he says I am. I've held on to crutches. I was angry because didn't trust him, because I held on to this outcome, and I was trying to manipulate the outcome in my head, or trying to control it. And because he didn't meet that, then I found him untrusting, so I didn't fully believe. And then he's like, but let me show you. And in the last few years, it's been that, like, it's been this one thing after another where I've discerned his voice, and there might be an expectation on it, or I hold on to a crutch to make this statement to the world of still human, still messy. And I am. And I don't know if I'll ever not have that message, because I'm called to vulnerability. I'm called to authenticity, and so are you. In whatever it is that you do, whether it is your parenting, whether it is your serving, your job, your business, your whatever, authenticity, vulnerability. That's what you're called to. See, that's how you meet people where they're at, is through the messy part. But you're also called to hope. If you walk through it, then you're called to hope. Crutches, discerning the voice of God. Are we coming? Heather says, I've been angry since Wednesday because of a situation, and I just now see where I was trying to get him to do my will. Yeah, well, and here's the thing. There's no shame in it. See, God's not shame either. We've built on all of these principles and these stories and these things that God keeps showing me, and we've all done it, and the Holy Spirit's moving in your life just as much as he's moving in mine. And I can guarantee you that God has talked to you just as much as he talks to me. And it might sound like I hear him all the time and I am just so close to the Father and you are so far away, but I'm not any closer to the Father than you can be. And I struggle with things too. Crutches. I was holding on to that expectation of grace, and it kept me in a state of bondage from experiencing true freedom. And there have been gradual things that have come to light since 2018. Y'all, we're talking 7 years now, okay? 7 years of walking with the Lord. And yeah, there's seasons of peace and joy, moments probably. I'm starting to get some seasons there. Moments of peace and joy. There's moments of growth, and there's seasons of heartache and hard and valleys. There's all of those things, yet then there's the human condition that I have been using as a crutch. Last season, if we want to call it that, last year, 2024, as I was going live, it was fear. And I used it as a crutch. And it was pointed out to me recently through several different people that, I know I've been using ADHD as a crutch. But see, the thing is he made me this way. It's not a crutch. It's not a crutch. And it's not an excuse. Well, I don't know. It's funny sometimes. I was just like yesterday, server down. It's not an excuse for whatever, but it is a way that I have been explaining how I'm starting to learn to love myself. Because, see, in recognizing where ADHD is so intricately woven in me, because that is how I was made. And it doesn't mean that my mind is broken. It's actually being made sound through this, because I can actually, with ADHD, that realization and working through some issues and the emotional intelligence that comes along with working through the issues and giving yourself compassion, I can pinpoint, oh, this is the ADHD, and I can find an accommodation. But there are times that people take it as that I am using it as a crutch, and maybe I have been. I've been using it as an excuse of my human condition, and maybe there are limitations in that. But see, he puts people in our paths that can help with those limitations. It's that, do we trust it? Do we trust it? I literally just prayed earlier that he reveal his perception on this situation. Well, I hope he has. Heather, you're like, yes, I haven't hope. I know you. I hope he has. It's not I hope. He has given you revelation, but it's him. Y'all remember that. If you've gotten revelation in this, it's him through me, through my story, through my words. What I am responsible for is not the revelation. It is the obedience and walking out what he's called me to. And it's not even in this obligatory obedience. Like, this is an obligation. This is I choose to worship him the way he's told me that this is my worship, my creative worship. Others, he's given the ability to paint beautiful pictures. And in others, he's given the ability to teach. And I'm not saying I don't teach either. Others, he's given the ability to lead a church, pastor a church. What is your worship? And I'm not saying it has to be straight up ministry, like what we look at as ministry. This right here, this is still pretty new ministry. All right, like let's talk about it. And then there's been this whole movement of worshiping ministry, not worshiping God through ministry. You self-sacrifice for ministry. And God's like, where am I? Hello, hello, hello. Been there, done that. I'm not even gonna call this a ministry. It's not nonprofit. Like, this is me doing my thing. What he's called me to, and I get to help others through a lot of things. And by learning to tell my own story, I get to teach others how to tell theirs. And testimony is, it's a big deal, y'all. It's how he reaches people. Creative worship that brings joy. Discerning the voice of God. You might have discerned him, but did you put an expectation on the outcome? Did you start doing the things he told you to do? Yet then there it was. Like, you're like, did I hear you correctly? Because that happened this week. Or you didn't do what I thought you were going to do, so therefore I can't trust you. I'm going to take a sip of coffee for a second. I want to wrap this up with just a perspective shift that I had this morning about, I really think that it has to do with discerning the voice of God, putting your expectations and trying to manipulate the situation into what you thought the outcome should be. And he's like, hold on, just wait. Hold on, just wait. And life is pretty organic. It's not very, if you ask me, there's not a lot of logical organization going on when it comes to life. I think we like to compartmentalize. It helps like keep things in order. But I will tell you too, for someone with ADHD, which is a superpower. I think in big pictures, and then I'm like, have to find somebody else to put in they have to put the structure in for me. And it works and it's beautiful. Um, and it's collaborative. We were never meant to do it alone, not without him and not without each other. It's very beautiful and organic and free flowing, and it doesn't look like what you think it should. So when you find yourself clinging to that outcome of what you think it should look like, just know that you are preparing yourself for disappointment, because it's just like anything else, putting the so much emphasis on the future. Anybody else do that? Like where you take and you are just you're having the whole conversation in your head to prepare yourself for that, and that conversation never happens. Or whatever. You think by preparing for the worst or the best or whatever that you're prepared to live that situation out, but now you've just taken up space in your head, lived one situation out, and in the the physical world lived another one. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. Let go of the outcome and live in the moment. Bible says that a lot. Walk through life, be obedient in the moment, and experience the joy in the moment. Experience the emotions in the moment. Be human and rely on him to give you the strength, the discernment, the words, whatever it is that you need in the next moment. But be in this moment. So we've talked about discerning the voice of God a little bit. And maybe I think that might be our next, I'm pretty sure that's going to be our next study, is like, what does the word say about discerning the voice of God? And how do we get past the struggle of discerning truth in his word amid past gaslighting, judgment, and the echoes that challenge many of us facing um, our own minds? It's that battle of the mind. And how do we how do how do we discern the voice of God when we're battling the mind? Well, let's talk about it. So I think that might be our next study. And I think that this is going to be a really great one for me too, because of the stories I tell about the ADHD. And I don't want to use it as a crutch, but it does need to be told. So that's, discerning the voice of God, having him come into this story, and what does it look like? Because it's still a condition I live with, but it doesn't mean it's a crutch. I'm still human. I'm still messy, and I still have some life to live, and life looks organic. So how do I do that? Discerning the voice of God and also still talking about the human condition, because see, that's how we get to others, but there's hope, right? So let's talk about that. I mentioned earlier about Eric and I struggling in a different way with this concept of purity. And I can see where these would go hand in hand with discerning the voice of God. See, I don't know about y'all, but the American church, the ones that I grew up with, really put a lot of emphasis on staying pure. And it was all about your own actions. And see, if I learned anything last year, is that yes, I'm responsible for pushing past the fear of overwhelm and things like that to learn the resilience that God was calling me into. I'm responsible for still taking the steps and getting in motion with that. He's responsible for the outcome, and the outcome of that was joy. Well, this year I'm focusing on peace. I'm focusing on peace, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing other than these kind of things. Well, do you know that so the definition of peace is wholeness. Shalom means whole. Okay. Emma, can you get Amber, please? Um, Peace means wholeness. Well, purity does too. So that tells me that, see, the outcome is pure. He has the outcome. Purity comes in the outcome, but what is it? Because see, we put so much emphasis on the things we do or don't do to stay pure, yet he calls us into purity, and it's his outcome. Is this resonating for somebody? And it's not that I'm talking about sexual purity, but these are the things that we focused on. It was the 90s. Do y'all know that guy? It's the true love waits movement. It's those things where we never felt good enough. Or we would don the t-shirt and walk the walk, talk the talk. We were Stepford wives of the Christian variety. We got in line. We looked like everybody else, so therefore we earned it. And look at that messy person over there. Y'all hear what I'm saying? He's in the outcome of it. I started talking about the anger that came from like doing the obedience, and I put this expectation and he didn't meet it. All right. And then I was angry. Can't be trusted. Who are you? Do you even care about me? Yes, he cares about me, and he cares about you too. But I put so much expectation on that outcome with my own perception. So let's do it. Y'all ready? Let's do that. Let's talk about discerning the voice of God, just listening, letting go of the expectations that come with the doing. Because see, that's manipulation, and that's not worship. That's not the love, right? And we're not even, there are times, and I want to encourage someone today that it is not up to you to be perfect in the obedience. It is really just opening up to experience the love. And those things will come. And when you stumble, when you sit down, when you feel the human condition, you're not unloved in that moment. You are still loved. He loves without the condition. So let's look at it. We're not looking at how to stay pure. We're not looking at how to earn love. We're not looking at how to stay in peace. We are looking at those heart postures, that pure worship, the things we can surrender. Our 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, our dumpster, we can surrender our dumpster and all those nasty identities we thought that were ours. Like we could, those are the things. And then like, let's move over into, what is he saying? How do we discern that? How do we share it in a way that helps others and doesn't give the excuse of the human condition, but God? And instead of thinking we are in charge of staying pure, peaceful, whole, perfect, instead of pursuing the perfectness of it, why don't we start learning how to pursue the one that perfects us? The one that give me a clean, what does it say? Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. It is not, God, I will create a new heart and I will get right in my spirit, and then all is well and I will be yours. Then you will accept me. No, he accepts me right now. He loves me. He loves you. Sin, let's talk about it. I'm just going to put it out there, is separation from God. Sin is separation from God. And you can feel so far from the Lord. It's not even funny when you're trapped in sin. I'm going to leave you with this picture, this visual, because it just popped in my head. And I might get emotional about this. I'm sure we've all seen it. Maybe not. You probably will now because I'm talking about it, you're listening. There are some barbers and hairstylists that will go and serve people on the streets that are in active addiction and stuff like that. And there was one that just absolutely um, broke my heart. Break my heart for what breaks yours, Lord. Broke my heart. Yesterday, I was watching uh, Facebook and or whatever. I was on Reels, and I saw this one, and it was just he was a young man. He was 25 or so. He had been in active addiction and homeless for like 2 years, and this guy, this barber was cutting his hair on the streets, and I want to say probably Detroit. I'm not sure. Snow on the ground. He had socks on, but he was wearing, like Crocs, so his feet weren't protected. He had like wind pants on that were very, very dirty, and he just he couldn't even keep his head up. He couldn't even keep his head up, and you can just feel through the screen the love that barber was just showing this man in this moment, um, this young man in this moment, and I just felt the love of the father for this man in active addiction, and I wasn't the only one. The comments were like, "That's somebody's little boy," and somebody even said, and this is where the tears came, was like. And I can tell, like, I'm going to come into agreement with this. I feel like it was like a word from the Lord, but they were like, he was remembering getting his hair cut, going to the barbershop with his mom when he was sitting there. And he was so out of his mind. He could have been sitting, as a little boy in the barbershop with his mom. And that's what I'm talking about, that God will meet us where we're at. It's the love of the Father, and it's through others sometimes, but sometimes it's just Him that shows up. Are you willing to be loved? Are you willing to be loved? And it's not in pursuit of a high. It's in the pursuit of having that space in your heart filled and wanting to stay there, and knowing that you hear His voice, knowing that you're loved, knowing that He holds you, and that He's not going to set you up on your feet, dust you off, and then make sure that you stay in line, that it's a relationship, and that He meets you in your most vulnerable moments. So I'll have to go look up that Matt Mayer song, Clean Heart. I'm annoying with my songs. No, you're not. You're not annoying, Sarah, just FYI. You have an amazing brain. All right, guys. It's been a great week. I'm glad to be back. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for showing up. And that's not an obligation either. There's seasons for everything. So if there's a time that, He takes you away or whatever, or He doesn't, whatever, it's okay. All right. I need y'all to hear that. But I know that there's some of us that are just linked, and we know it. It's that soul sister thing, God's like, hey, sisterhood. Anyways, reach out if that's the case, and let's talk. All right. I love y'all. Have an amazing day. Let me show you who my Jesus is, and we are going to call it a week. Week 1, season 2, week 1 comes to an end. Love y'all. He loves you. He absolutely, positively loves you. He will meet you in your mess, whether it's on the streets of Detroit, in active addiction, or in your home office, reading the scriptures and being introduced to Him for the first time, and understanding the secret place. Those are different seasons, but still same God. He loves you. He loves you. And he actually understands your human condition because he was human. He experienced it. And he called you worthy of his sacrifice. In Psalm 32, 8 and 9, I hear the Lord saying, I will stay close to you, instructing and guiding you along the pathway for your life because I love you. I will advise you along the way, and I will lead you forth with my eyes as your guide. So don't make it difficult and don't be stubborn when I take you where you've not been before. It might look a little different than sitting in a pew, wearing the t-shirt and walking the walk and talking the talk. Just FYI. Don't make me tug you. Don't make it difficult. Don't be stubborn when I take you where you've not been before. And don't make me tug you and pull you along. Just come with me because there's such an adventure. Such an adventure just for you. Love you. See y'all Monday.